The year is roughly 528 BC. The place is a dense grove of trees near the Naranjara River in northern India. The air is thick with the heat of the dry season. A man sits motionless at the base of a massive fig tree. He is 35 years old, but he looks ancient. His skin is pulled tight over his bones, outlining the shape of his rib cage, like the rungs of a ladder. His eyes are sunken deep into his skull, dark shadows resting beneath them. He has barely eaten in weeks. He has barely slept. He is holding his breath, forcing his body into a state of extreme stress, believing that if he can just punish his physical form enough, his spirit will break free. He is a prince who walked away from a palace of gold to find the truth of why we suffer. Now he sits in the dirt, covered in dust, starving and exhausted. He believes he is doing the right thing. He believes that the path to peace is paved with pain. He thinks that if he fights his own mind hard enough, he will win. But he is wrong. In this specific moment, sitting under the Bodhi tree, the man who will become the Buddha is not a master. He is a failure. He is seconds away from death. He has pushed the human machine past its limit, and the silence he seeks has not come. All he has found is more noise, more pain, and a darkness that threatens to swallow him whole. The irony is profound. He is searching for a way to end suffering, yet he is inflicting the greatest suffering upon himself. He is trying to conquer his mind, using the very weapon that created the war: force. He does not yet know that the key he is searching for is not a weapon at all. He does not know that the harder he pushes, the further away he pushes the peace he desires. He is like a man trying to smooth out rough water with a flat iron. His very effort is what keeps the water turbulent. This image of the starving prince is where we begin, because it is the exact state of your own mind tonight. You may not be starving in a forest, but you are likely fighting a similar battle. You are lying there, perhaps trying to force yourself to sleep. You are trying to force your anxiety to go away. You are trying to solve the problems of tomorrow with the exhausted energy of today. You believe, just as the prince believed, that if you worry enough, if you plan enough, if you tense your muscles enough, you will find control. You think that peace is something you must chase down and capture. But tonight, we are going to dismantle that belief. We are not here to learn history. We are here to download a new operating system for your mind. The wisdom we are about to explore is not a collection of old rules. It is a set of keys designed to unlock the cage you have built around yourself. The man under the tree is about to realize something that will change the course of human history. He is about to realize that the string of his life is pulled too tight. And because it is too tight, it cannot make music. It can only snap. He accepts a bowl of rice milk from a village girl. He eats, he breathes, he stops fighting, and in that moment of stopping, the universe opens up. This is the invitation of this journey. You are invited to stop. You are invited to see that the friction you feel, the stress, the sleeplessness, the racing thoughts is not a sign that you need to do more. It is a sign that you have forgotten how to simply be. We often move through life like a traveler carrying a heavy coat, unaware of the value of what we are carrying. There is an ancient story that speaks to this condition, a story we will carry with us throughout this night. It tells of a poor man, a wanderer who owned nothing but the rags on his back. He traveled from village to village, begging for food, sleeping on the hard ground, always cold, always hungry, always afraid of what the next day would bring. He defined himself by his lack. He looked at the wealthy merchants in their carriages and felt a deep, aching envy. He believed he was destined to be empty. One night, this poor traveler visited the home of an old friend who had become very successful. They ate together and drank wine, and the traveler, exhausted from his hard life, fell into a deep, drunken sleep. The wealthy friend had to leave early the next morning for a business trip, and did not want to wake the sleeping man. But he wanted to help him. He wanted to end his friend's suffering once and for all. So, before he left, the wealthy friend took a priceless jewel, a diamond of unmatched brilliance and value, and carefully sewed it inside the hem of the traveler's ragged coat. He hid it there, safe and secure, and then he departed. When the traveler woke up, he was alone. He did not check his coat. He did not know what had happened while he slept. He simply stood up, wrapped his rags around him, and walked out the door to continue his life of begging. He walked for years. He suffered through storms and droughts. He cried out to the heavens, asking why he had been forsaken, why he had nothing. All the while, the diamond was there. It was resting against his hip, closer to him than his own skin. He was a wealthy man living as a beggar, not because he lacked the treasure, but because he was asleep to its presence. You are that traveler. The anxiety you feel is the hunger of the beggar. The racing thoughts are the cold wind. But the premise of the wisdom we will access tonight is that the jewel is already sewn into the lining of your being. You do not need to go out and find peace. You do not need to earn rest. You do not need to build a better version of yourself before you are allowed to sleep. The diamond is already there. The only thing required is to stop walking, stop begging, and look inside the coat. Throughout the hours ahead, we will cut the threads that hide this truth. We are going to walk the path that the prince walked. We will move from the friction of the fight into the clarity of the awakening. We will look at the nature of the mind, not as a master to be obeyed, but as a mechanism to be understood. We will see that the thoughts that keep you awake are not monsters. They are just passing weather patterns in a sky that they cannot touch. You might feel heavy right now. You might feel like you are carrying a boulder on your back, a heavy stone made of your past mistakes, your future worries, and your present tensions. You have carried it for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to stand up straight. You think this weight is who you are. But by the time we reach the end of this journey, you will understand a secret that the conscious mind often misses. You will understand that you are not the weaver of this heavy tapestry, frantically trying to tie the knots. You are the loom itself, silent, sturdy, and capable of holding any thread without breaking. You will see that the boulder you think is crushing you is not glued to your spine. You can put it down. And when you do, you will not just sleep, you will be free. Prepare yourself now. The struggle under the tree is ending. The rice milk has been offered. The silence is descending. The operating system is ready to update. Let us begin the work of finding what is hidden in the hem of your coat. Let us begin the gentle process of putting down the stone. Chapter 2. The Physics of Friction. The journey into deep rest begins not with a request for peace, but with an honest examination of the noise. Before we can dismantle the engine of anxiety, we must understand how it runs. In the ancient texts written in the Pali language, there is a word that sits at the foundation of the human condition. That word is dukkha. It is often translated into English as suffering, but this is a clumsy translation. Suffering implies a great tragedy, a broken bone, or a lost love. But dukkha is more subtle. It is more pervasive. A better translation for the modern mind is friction. It is the fundamental unsatisfactoriness of a life that does not fit perfectly together. Imagine a wooden cart with two large wheels. If the axle of one wheel is perfectly smooth and centered, the cart rolls silently. It glides. But if the hole in the center of the wheel is just slightly too large, or if the axle is slightly bent, the wheel does not glide. It grinds. With every revolution, there is a bump, there is a sound, there is a resistance. It may not stop the cart from moving, but the ride is never smooth. There is a constant low-level vibration that travels up through the wood and into the bones of the driver. That vibration is the essence of friction. This friction is not an error in the system. It is the nature of a system that is out of alignment. You feel this friction in the background of your days. It is the subtle sense that things are not quite right. It is the gap between how the world is and how you want it to be. You want the traffic to move, but it is stopped. That is friction. You want the conversation to go a certain way, but it goes another. That is friction. You want to be asleep, but you are awake. That is the ultimate friction. The mind that is untrained is constantly generating this heat. It looks at the present moment and says, "No, not this." It pushes against reality. When you push against a solid object, you create resistance. When you push against the flow of time, you create stress. This is simple physics. The energy you spend resisting the reality of this moment is the energy that keeps you awake. It is the fuel that powers the racing thoughts. You are trying to smooth out the road using the force of your will, but the road is made of earth and stone. It cannot be smoothed by force. The prince under the tree understood this physics. He realized that the pain he felt was not coming from the world outside. The world simply is. The rain falls, the sun burns, the body ages. These are not personal attacks. They are the mechanics of existence. The pain comes from the refusal to accept these mechanics. It comes from the desire for the axle to be straight when it is bent. It comes from the demand for the silence to be absolute when there is noise. We spend our lives trying to lubricate this friction with external things. We seek comfort, we seek distraction, we seek validation. We think that if we can just arrange the furniture of our lives in the perfect configuration, the grinding noise will stop. We think that if we achieve enough, earn enough, or control enough, the wheel will finally spin true. But the friction is not in the furniture. The friction is in the relationship between the mind and the moment. As long as there is a craving for the moment to be different than it is, there will be heat. The teaching invites you to stop trying to fix the axle while the cart is moving. It invites you to simply listen to the sound. When you stop fighting the friction, something paradoxical happens. The heat begins to dissipate. You are no longer adding your own resistance to the equation. You acknowledge the unsatisfactoriness. You admit that the situation is not perfect. You admit that the body is tense. You admit that the mind is active. In this admission, there is a release. You are stepping back from the machinery. You are no longer the person pushing the cart. You are the one watching it roll. You observe the vibration without becoming the vibration. This is the first step toward the cooling of the mind. The friction may still be there like a distant sound, but it no longer burns you. You understand that the wheel turns, the bump happens, and the journey continues. You do not need to smooth the road tonight. You only need to stop pushing against the bumps. The physics of peace is the physics of non-resistance. It is the art of letting the wheel turn, however it turns, and resting in the carriage, knowing that you are being carried regardless of the terrain. Chapter 3. The Weaver's Trap. To understand how we bind ourselves to this friction, we look to the story of Mara. In the high mountain villages of the ancient kingdom, Mara was known as the Weaver of Light. She did not just make cloth, she created tapestries that seemed to hold the very soul of the landscape. Her hands moved with a fluidity that was more like water than flesh. When she sat at her loom, she was not working, she was breathing. The rhythm of the shuttle moving back and forth was the rhythm of her heart. She was celebrated for her artistry. People traveled from the lowlands just to watch her work, to see the threads of crimson and gold turn into scenes of fire and dawn. For years, Mara lived in a state of simple joy. Her identity was fluid. She wove because it was what her hands knew how to do. But slowly, a subtle shift occurred. The praise she received began to harden into a definition. She heard the words, "You are the greatest weaver," so many times that she began to believe them. She began to attach her sense of worth to the fabric that came off the loom. She was no longer Mara who weaves, she was Mara, the weaver. The distinction is small in language, but vast in consequence. One day, a messenger arrived from the capital. The king had heard of her skill. He commissioned a tapestry of unprecedented size. He wanted her to capture the essence of the entire kingdom, the forests, the rivers, the mountains, and the people. He wanted a masterpiece that would hang in the royal throne room for 1,000 years. He offered her a chest of gold and a timeline of 1 year. Mara accepted the commission with a flush of pride. This was the validation of her identity. But as the messenger left, the pride evaporated, replaced by a cold, heavy stone in her stomach. The joy of creation was instantly replaced by the terror of expectation. She went to the market and bought the most expensive silks. She built a loom twice the size of her old one. She set up her workshop with meticulous care. But when she sat down to begin, her hands trembled. The fluid motion was gone. Every time she picked up a thread, a voice in her head spoke, "Is this perfect? Is this worthy of a king? What if I fail?" The loom, which had been her instrument of freedom, became a judgment seat. She would weave a few inches, look at it with a critical eye, and then unravel it in frustration. The red was not vibrant enough. The pattern was too simple. It was not a masterpiece, it was just cloth. Days turned into weeks. The loom stood mostly empty, a skeleton in the corner of her room. The friction in her mind became a roaring fire. She could not sleep. She would lie awake staring at the ceiling, calculating how much time she had lost, imagining the king's disappointment, visualizing her own public humiliation. She was trapped in the prison of her own reputation. The weaver had been consumed by the judge. She stopped seeing the beauty of the thread. She only saw the potential for error. Her identity as the great weaver was a heavy armor that restricted her movement. She could not flow because armor does not bend. She was trying to weave from a place of deficit, trying to prove she was worthy rather than weaving from a place of fullness, simply expressing what was there. The creativity that had once been a rushing river was dammed up by the fear of being ordinary. Mara's condition is the condition of the modern mind. We are all given commissions by our bosses, by our families, by society, or by our own ambition. We are told to be the perfect parent, the successful worker, the calm person. We build an identity around these roles. We say, "I am successful," or "I am strong," and the moment we solidify that identity, we live in fear of anything that contradicts it. We stop living and start performing. We are terrified of the empty loom because we believe that without the perfect tapestry, we are nothing. Mara sat before the white warp threads, her head in her hands. The silence of the workshop was deafening. The dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight, mocking her stillness. She was paralyzed not by a lack of skill, but by an excess of self. She had forgotten that the weaving does not belong to the weaver. It belongs to the thread. It belongs to the moment. She was trying to control the outcome before the first knot was tied. She was caught in the trap of perfection, and the door was locked from the inside. Chapter 4. The View from the Hermitage. The pressure in the workshop became physically unbearable. The air felt thin, as if the unmade tapestry was sucking the oxygen out of the room. Unable to sit before the accusing loom for another moment, Mara stood up. She left her house, left the expensive silks, and walked out into the cool evening air. She began to climb the path that led further up the mountain, away from the village, away from the expectations. Her legs burned with the exertion, and the physical sensation was a relief. It grounded her. She climbed until she reached a small hermitage, a simple stone hut perched on a ledge overlooking the valley. An old nun lived there, a woman who had once been a craftswoman herself before taking the robes. Mara found her sitting on a flat rock, looking out at the horizon. The nun did not turn when Mara approached. She simply patted the stone beside her. Mara sat. She was vibrating with anxiety, her story of failure ready to spill out. She wanted to ask for advice. She wanted a technique to stop the trembling in her hands. She wanted to know how to fix the tapestry. But before she could speak, the nun pointed a bony finger towards the west. The sun was beginning its descent. The sky was a chaotic, magnificent collision of colors. Deep purples bruised the edges of the clouds, bleeding into fiery oranges and soft, impossible pinks. The light was shifting by the second. A golden ray would strike a cloud, illuminate it for a heartbeat, and then fade into gray. "Tell me," the nun said, her voice like dry leaves. "Is the sunset perfect?" Mara looked. "Yes," she whispered, "it is beautiful." "Is it symmetrical?" the nun asked. "No," Mara said. The clouds were scattered. The light was uneven. "Does it last?" the nun asked. "No," Mara said. "It is already changing." The nun turned to look at Mara, her eyes clear and unblinking. "No one expects the sunset to hold still," she said. "No one demands that it turns green instead of red. No one judges the cloud for drifting to the left instead of the right. We simply watch it. We allow it to be exactly what it is. Its beauty is not in its perfection. Its beauty is in its unfolding." She touched Mara's hand. The skin was rough, the knuckles swollen from years of work. "You are trying to weave a statue," the nun said. "You are trying to freeze the kingdom in silk. But the kingdom is alive. You are not the weaver, Mara. You are the loom. Life is the weaver. The fear you feel, that is a thread. The doubt, that is a thread of a darker color. The joy, that is a thread of gold. You are rejecting the dark threads. You are trying to weave a tapestry using only the colors you think the king wants. But a tapestry with no shadow has no depth." The words struck Mara with the force of a bell, ringing in a deep valley. She realized she had been acting as a gatekeeper, barring the door to her own experience. She had been waiting for the right feelings to arrive before she began to work. She had been rejecting the reality of her own fear. "Go back," the nun said. "Do not try to make a masterpiece. Just weave what is there. If your hands tremble, weave the tremble into the cloth. If you are afraid, use the color of fear. Be honest, not perfect. The king asked for the essence of the kingdom. The essence of the kingdom includes the storms as well as the sunlight." Mara walked back down the mountain in the twilight. The stars were coming out, pinpricks of light in the vast darkness. She entered her workshop. She did not light the lamps. She sat at the great loom in the semi-darkness. She picked up the shuttle. Her hands were still trembling. She did not try to stop them. She let the shuttle carry the vibration of her fear into the weft. She chose a dark indigo thread, the color of her anxiety, and she threw the shuttle. Clack! She threw it again. Clack! She was not weaving a vision of perfection. She was weaving the truth of the moment. She wove the darkness of the night. She wove the jagged line of the mountain path. She wove the uncertainty. And as she accepted the dark threads, the tension in her shoulders began to dissolve. The loom began to sing again. She was no longer a woman trying to prove her worth. She was a vessel through which the threads were flowing. She was the space where the fabric happened. She wove until dawn, and the tapestry that emerged was not the one she had planned. It was wilder, it was darker, but it was alive with a power that perfection could never possess. Chapter 5. The Illusion of Solidity. The lesson of the loom brings us to one of the central laws of this universe, a law that the prince under the tree saw with absolute clarity. It is the law of anicca, or impermanence. When Mara looked at the sunset, she saw beauty because she accepted that the sunset was a process, not an object. When she looked at her work, she suffered because she wanted it to be a solid, unchanging monument. We suffer because we live in a world of fluids, but we treat it like a world of solids. We look at our bodies, our relationships, our bank accounts, and our mental states, and we expect them to be statues. We expect them to stand still. We want the good health to be permanent. We want the happy mood to be a fixed state. We want the person we love to never change. We build our houses on the banks of a rushing river, and then we panic when the water rises and falls. Imagine you are standing in that river. The water is cool and clear. You decide you want to possess this water. You want to keep it, so you plunge your hand into the current and close your fist as tight as you can. You squeeze with all your strength, determined to hold on to this specific handful of water. What happens? The harder you squeeze, the faster the water escapes through your fingers. Within seconds, your hand is empty. You are left with nothing but a wet palm and the ache of tension in your muscles. This is the mechanism of anxiety. Anxiety is the fist clenching the water. It is the mind trying to freeze the flow of time. We try to grasp the present moment and make it stay, or we try to grasp the future and force it into a specific shape. But the nature of reality is that of a current. It is endless flux. The cells in your body are dying and being born every second. The thoughts in your mind are appearing and vanishing like sparks from a fire. The emotions you feel are weather patterns that drift in and drift out. Nothing is solid. Even the mountain that Mara climbed is slowly, imperceptibly wearing down, grain of sand by grain of sand. Even the sun she watched set is burning through its fuel and will one day go dark. To the untrained mind, this is terrifying. It sounds like loss. If nothing stays, then what is the point? If everything I love will change, how can I be safe? But to the wise mind, Anika is not a threat. It is the ultimate liberation. If everything changes, then your pain is also impermanent. The sleeplessness you feel right now, it is not a concrete block. It is a cloud. It is moving. It has a beginning, and therefore it must have an end. The anxiety that feels so heavy, it is a passing energy. It cannot stay because nothing stays. When you understand impermanence, you stop trying to build a dam in the river. You learn to swim. You realize that safety does not come from holding on. It comes from letting go. You open your fist in the water, and when you open your hand, the water is still there. It flows over your skin, cool and refreshing. You are in contact with it, but you are not trying to trap it. You have the water, but you also have the flow. Tonight, you are likely holding on to the idea of sleep. You are grasping at it, clenching your mental fists, thinking, I must sleep now. But sleep is a fluid. You cannot catch it. You can only create the conditions for it to arrive. You must open the hand. You must acknowledge that this moment, this awake moment, is also impermanent. It will change. You do not need to force it to change. The law of the universe guarantees that it will. Rest in the knowledge of flow. You do not need to hold the world together. Gravity is doing that. You do not need to freeze time. Let it move. Let the thoughts come and let them go. Let the sensations rise and let them fall. You are the riverbed. You are the channel. The water moves, but the channel remains. Be the open hand. Be the space where the change happens. In the acceptance of flux, there is a stillness that is deeper than any stone. It is the stillness of the swimmer who has stopped fighting the current and has learned to float. Chapter 6. The Master Potter. We leave the weaver's loom and the mountain sunset to travel down into the valley where the earth is rich and red. Here the air smells of damp soil and wood smoke. In this valley there lived a master potter named Isara. She was not famous in the way the king was famous. She did not have servants or gold, but among those who knew the language of the hands, she was a legend. It was said that Isara did not shape the clay, she listened to it. When she sat at her wheel, she entered a silence so profound that even the birds seemed to quiet down around her studio. To learn from her, a young apprentice named Kale arrived from the city. Kale was bright, ambitious, and possessed a burning desire for perfection. He had studied the geometry of forms. He knew the chemical composition of glazes. He had a picture in his mind of the perfect pot, symmetrical, flawless, a mathematical ideal made manifest in mud. He believed that if he could create this perfect object, he would finally feel complete. He believed that his worth as a human being was directly tied to the symmetry of the vessels he produced. Kale worked with a ferocity that was frightening to watch. He would wake before dawn, wedge the clay until his arms ached, and sit at the wheel for hours. His brow would furrow, his jaw would clench. He held his breath as if breathing might disturb the delicate rotation of the wheel. He treated the clay like an enemy that needed to be conquered, forced into submission by the sheer power of his will. And he was talented. He could pull a wall of clay up high and thin, but the very second, a slight wobble appeared, or a tiny bubble of air surfaced, or the rim dipped by a fraction of an inch, Kale would destroy it. He would take his cutting wire and slice through the pot with a violent motion, collapsing the wet clay back into a shapeless lump. He would curse under his breath, wipe the sweat from his eyes, and start again. The floor of his workspace was a graveyard of almost perfect pots, a testament to his ruthless standards. He was seeking a static perfection in a medium that was wet, heavy, and alive. One afternoon, the heat in the studio was stifling. Kale had been working on a large vase for 3 hours. It was magnificent. The curve was elegant, the neck slender. He was holding his breath, his hands trembling with the effort of maintaining total control. He reached for a sponge to smooth the lip, and in that split second of distraction, his finger snagged. The rim wobbled. A small, undeniable asymmetry rippled down the side of the vase. Kale let out a cry of rage. He raised his fist to smash the vessel, to obliterate the evidence of his failure. "Wait." The voice was soft, barely a whisper, but it froze Kale's arm in midair. Isara was standing behind him. She had been watching him for a long time. She did not look at his face. She looked at the vase on the wheel. She walked over, sat down on the bench opposite him, and placed her hand gently on the wheel to stop its spinning. "Why do you wish to kill it?" she asked. "It is ruined," Kale said, his voice thick with frustration. "Look at the rim. It is uneven. The balance is lost. It is flawed." Isara looked at the wobble. She did not see a mistake. She saw the clay speaking. "You are trying to make something that is not of this earth," she said. "Clay comes from the ground, Kale. It is the dust of mountains. It is the sediment of rivers. It is heavy. It is wild. It wants to move. You are fighting the clay because you are fighting your own humanity. You want to be a machine that produces perfect circles, but you are a man. Your heart beats. Your hands shake. Your breath moves your ribs. This wobble, it is the signature of your breath. It is the proof that a living being made this, not a mold." She took the wet vase off the wheel. She did not smooth out the wobble. She did not fix the asymmetry. She set it on the drying shelf exactly as it was. "We will fire this one," she said. Kale was horrified. "But people will see the mistake," he protested. "They will see that I am not a master." Isara smiled, and her face was like a map of the valley, lined with the beautiful wrinkles of time. "They will see that you are present," she said. "The perfect pot has no story. It is blank. It is silent. It pushes people away because it is too cold, too remote. But this pot, it has a vulnerability. It invites the hand to hold it. It says, 'I was made by a human, for a human.'" "You are exhausted, Kale, because you are trying to stand outside of life to control it. Come down, get your hands dirty, let the clay wobble. That is where the life is. Kale looked at the drying shelf. For the first time, he saw the vase not as a failed project, but as a captured moment of time. The wobble was not an error. It was a record of the afternoon heat, his tired muscles, his human effort. It was honest. And in that honesty there was a beauty that his perfect geometry could never achieve. He let out a long breath, a breath he felt he had been holding for months. The tension in his chest began to loosen. He realized he was not there to dominate the earth. He was there to dance with it. Chapter 7. The art of golden repair. The firing of the kiln is a violent and unpredictable process. Fire is a chaotic element, even more so than clay. Days later, when the kiln had cooled and was finally opened, Kale and Isara began to unload the wares. They pulled out bowls and cups hardened by the heat. Then they reached the back of the kiln where Kale's wobbled vase had been placed. The heat had been too intense in that corner. As Isara lifted the vase into the light, a hairline crack was visible. It ran from the uneven rim down across the belly of the pot, a jagged lightning bolt of separation. The stress of the fire had been too much. The structural integrity was compromised. Kale's shoulders slumped. "You see," he said, his voice dull with resignation, "it was flawed. Now it is broken. It is garbage." He reached out to take it, intending to throw it onto the pile of shards outside the studio door. Isara held the vase back. "No," she said firmly, "it is not garbage. It is ready." She carried the cracked vase to her workbench. From a small wooden box, she took out a vial of lacquer and a pouch of fine powder. It was pure gold dust. Kale watched, confused, as she mixed the sticky lacquer with the gold until it formed a shimmering, thick paste. With a brush as fine as an eyelash, she began to trace the line of the crack. She did not try to hide the break. She did not try to glue it together invisibly so that no one would know it had been damaged. Instead, she painted the crack with the gold. She highlighted it. She honored it. She turned the jagged line of the fracture into a gleaming river of light running through the ceramic landscape. When she was finished, she held the vase up. The sunlight caught the gold seam, and the pot seemed to glow. It was breathtaking. The crack was no longer a scar. It was the focal point of the beauty. It was the most stunning part of the object. "This is kintsugi," Isara whispered. "The art of golden repair. You see, Kale, the world breaks things. Everyone breaks. You break, I break. We are dropped by life. We are burned by the fire of loss. We crack under the pressure of expectation. We fracture from the heat of our own anxiety. This is unavoidable. The clay is fragile." She placed the golden-seamed vase in Kale's hands. It felt different now, heavier, more precious. "The mistake you make," she continued, "is thinking that the brokenness is the end of the story. You think that because you are cracked, because you have trauma, because you have anxiety, because you cannot sleep, that you are diminished. You think you are worth less than the whole. Perfect people you imagine exist out there. But they do not exist. Everyone is a bag of shards held together by skin." She pointed to the gold line. "We do not hide the history. We do not pretend the damage never happened. We fill the cracks with gold. We value the resilience it takes to hold together. This vase is more beautiful now than it was before it broke. Before it was just a pot. Now it is a survivor. It has a narrative. It has endured the fire and the fall, and it is still here holding its shape." This teaching is a balm for the weary mind lying in the dark. You are likely lying there reviewing your cracks. You are thinking about the mistakes you made today, the conversations you mishandled, the years you feel you have wasted. You are looking at the fractures in your life and calling them failures. You are wishing you could throw yourself on the shard pile and start over as a perfect, unbroken vessel. But the wisdom of the gold lacquer tells you something different. It tells you that your anxiety is not a defect. It is a response to the fire. It tells you that your insomnia is not a sin. It is a crack in the rhythm waiting for the gold. You do not need to be fixed in the way you fix a machine. You do not need to be restored to a factory setting of normal. You are becoming something new. The healing is not in the disappearance of the crack. The healing is in the way you treat the crack. Do you hide it with shame? Or do you trace it with the gold of self-compassion? Do you look at your racing mind and hate it? Or do you look at it and say, "Ah, here is the break. Here is where I need to apply the gentle attention"? Kale looked at the vase. He traced the gold line with his thumb. He felt the ridge of the repair. It was distinct. It was real. He understood then that he would never be perfect. He would never be the geometric ideal. He would be broken again and again. But in the repair there was an opportunity for a kind of alchemy. He could turn his debris into art. He could turn his suffering into wisdom. He placed the vase on the highest shelf, not despite its flaw, but because of it. It stood there, gleaming in the shadows, a testament to the fact that we are not defined by how we break, but by how we mend. Chapter 8. The Fortress of Identity. As we integrate the lesson of the golden repair, we must now turn our gaze inward to the architecture of the mind itself. We must look at the structure that suffers the cracks. We call this structure I. We call it myself. It feels like a solid thing, a dense core inside the chest or behind the eyes that is navigating the world. Imagine a vast, open plain. In the middle of this plain, a man decides he is unsafe. He feels exposed to the wind and the wild animals. So he begins to build a fortress. He lays the foundation stones of his name. He builds walls out of his memories. "I am the one who succeeded at this," he says, placing a stone. "I am the one who failed at that," he says, placing another. He mortars the stones together with his likes and dislikes. "I am a person who loves quiet. I am a person who hates conflict." Higher and higher the walls go. He builds towers of his roles. Father, manager, artist, victim. He digs a moat of his opinions and fills it with the water of his beliefs. Finally, he creates a heavy iron gate of his political and social identity. When he is finished, he stands inside his fortress. The walls are thick. The gate is locked. He feels safe. He knows who he is. He is the king of this castle. But soon a problem arises. Because he has built walls, he has created an inside and an outside. Anything that is outside is now a potential threat. If someone shouts an insult from the plain, it hits the wall. The man inside feels attacked. He must rush to the ramparts to defend the fortress. He must shoot arrows of argument back. He must repair the chips in the stone. If the wind blows too hard, he worries for the towers. If the moat dries up, he panics. He spends every waking hour patrolling the perimeter, checking for cracks, guarding the gate, watching the horizon for enemies. The safety he sought has become a full-time job of defense. He is not a king, he is a prisoner. The fortress that was meant to protect him has cut him off from the sunlight, the breeze, and the flow of the world. This is the condition of the human ego. This is what the Buddha called the illusion of the self. We spend our entire lives constructing this fortress of identity. We tell ourselves stories about who we are, and then we have to defend those stories. If you believe I am a smart person, then every time you make a mistake, it is a catastrophe. It is a breach of the wall. You must scramble to justify the mistake, to blame someone else, to patch the hole. The suffering doesn't come from the mistake. It comes from the defense of the identity. If you believe I am a good sleeper, then a night of insomnia is a crisis. It attacks your definition of yourself. But if you have no fortress, what is attacked? The teaching of anatta, or not self, is the invitation to open the gate. It is the radical suggestion that the fortress is unnecessary because there is actually no one inside to protect. It sounds frightening at first. We think, if I am not this fortress, then I am nothing. But the opposite is true. If you take down the walls, you become the plane. You become the wind. You become the space. If an insult comes, it passes right through. There is no wall for it to hit. There is no I to be offended. If a mistake happens, it is just an event in the landscape, not a structural failure of your being. The man in the fortress is exhausted. He is tired of the constant vigilance. He is tired of the maintenance. Tonight, you are tired. You are tired of defending your image. You are tired of worrying about whether you are good enough, successful enough, or calm enough. These are just stones in the wall. What if you stopped repairing the fortress tonight? What if you let the stones sit where they are? What if you realized that the I you are trying to soothe to sleep is just a construct, a collection of habits and memories, and not the true essence of your awareness? The awareness that is listening to these words right now has no walls. It has no name. It has no age. It is just pure, open receiving. It hears the sound. It feels the bed. It has no edges. The fortress is small, cramped, and dark. The awareness is vast, open, and free. Sleep does not come to the fortress. Sleep comes to the plain. It settles like a mist over the open grass. To find rest, you must step out of the gate. You must lay down the tools of defense and walk out into the open field of simply being. Chapter 9. Dismantling the Chariot. To truly understand that the fortress is an illusion, we must look closer. We must deconstruct the idea of the self with the precision of a master carpenter. For this, we travel to a monastery famous for its logic and its silence. There lived a monk named Jin. Jin was a man plagued by a relentless inner critic. His mind was a courtroom where he was always on trial. I am not meditating deeply enough, he would think. I am too distracted. I am a fraud. He believed that this I, this Jin, was a solid, defective entity that needed to be fixed. One day, the abbot called Jin into his study. On the floor lay a magnificent model of a royal chariot. It was crafted from teak and ivory with intricate wheels, a polished axle, a comfortable seat, and a curved yoke for the horses. "Tell me, Jin," the abbot said, "is this a chariot?" "Yes, master," Jin replied. "It is a beautiful chariot." "Are you sure?" the abbot asked, his eyes twinkling with a mischievous light. He reached down and removed one of the wheels. He held it up. "Is this wheel the chariot?" Jin frowned. "No, master, that is a wheel." The abbot set the wheel aside. He removed the axle. "Is this wooden pole the chariot?" "No," Jin said, "that is the axle." The abbot continued. He removed the seat. He removed the frame. He removed the yoke. He removed the decorative canopy. He placed each piece on the floor in a separate pile. Within minutes, the beautiful object was gone. All that remained was a scattered collection of parts. "Now," the abbot asked, gesturing to the empty space on the floor, "where is the chariot?" Jin stared at the empty floor. He looked at the pile of parts. "It is gone," he whispered. "But I did not destroy it," the abbot said. "I only separated the parts. The chariot was never a thing, Jin. It was a word. It was a label we gave to a temporary arrangement of wheels, axle, and frame. When the parts are together, we say chariot. When the parts are apart, the chariot vanishes. It has no independent soul. It is a convention." The abbot leaned forward. "And so it is with you, Jin. You are so worried about this I that is failing. You judge Jin so harshly. But look for him. Where is he?" The abbot pointed to Jin's body. "Is this body Jin? The body changes every moment. It was once a baby, now a man, soon a corpse. Is the hair Jin? Is the tooth Jin?" "No," Jin said. "Is the thought Jin?" the abbot asked. "You have a thought of anger, then it goes, then a thought of hunger, then it goes. Which one is you?" "None of them," Jin said. "Are your feelings Jin?" the abbot pressed. "The sadness, the joy, They are like the weather. Is the storm the sky? No. Then where is this self you are so afraid of? The abbot smiled. You are like the chariot. You are a collection of processes: form, feeling, perception, thought, consciousness. They work together for a time. We give this collection a name, jinn. But there is no little man sitting inside the brain pulling the levers. There is no solid core that can be broken or flawed. You are a flowing event, not a static thing. Jinn sat in the silence of the room. He felt a strange sensation, a kind of dizziness that was also a liberation. He had spent his life trying to polish the chariot, trying to make the chariot worthy, but the chariot was just a concept. If there was no solid jinn, then who was failing? Who was not good enough? The judgments of his inner critic suddenly had no target. They were arrows shot into empty space. You are a process, the abbot whispered. A process cannot fail. A process can only unfold. Does a cloud fail? Does a river fail? No, they just move. You are a movement of life. Stop trying to freeze the movement into a statue called me. Let the parts flow. Let the thoughts think. Let the body breathe. You are the awareness that sees the parts, not the label that binds them. This is the great dismantling. Tonight, as you lie in bed, you can perform this same investigation. Look at your anxiety. Is that you? No, it is a sensation. Look at your racing thoughts. Are they you? No, they are just sounds in the mind. Look at your body. Is it you? No, it is biological matter. If you take away the parts, the heavy, burdened self disappears. The weight you are carrying is the weight of a ghost. It is the weight of a word. When you see that the chariot is just parts, you stop worrying about the chariot's ego. You simply let the wheels turn. You let the axles spin. You exist as a beautiful, fluid convergence of life, empty of a separate self, and therefore full of everything else. Chapter 10. The Five Aggregates. We have dismantled the chariot. We have seen the wheels and the axle lying separately on the floor, revealing that the vehicle was never a single thing, but an assembly of parts. Now we must turn that same piercing gaze upon the entity you call myself. If we are to find the peace that lies beneath the noise of the mind, we must understand exactly what the mind is made of. We must look at the machinery of human experience not with fear, but with the cold, clear eye of a mechanic inspecting an engine. The Buddha did not speak of a soul. He spoke of 5 heaps, 5 changing processes that clump together to create the illusion of a person. These are the 5 aggregates. The first aggregate is form. This is the physical matter. It is the body you are inhabiting right now. Lie still and feel it. You call it my body, but look closer. It is made of the element of earth, the bones, the teeth, the flesh, the heavy solidity that presses into the mattress. It is made of the element of water, the blood, the saliva, the fluids that flow through the veins like rivers through a landscape. It is made of the element of fire, the digestion, the body heat, the electrical impulses firing in the nerves. It is made of the element of wind, the breath entering the lungs, the oxygen moving into the cells. When you look at form this way, you see that it is not personal. The earth in your bones is the same calcium found in the cliffs of the coast. The water in your blood is the same water that fell as rain last week. The heat in your belly is the same energy that radiates from the sun. The air in your lungs is borrowed from the atmosphere and must be returned. This aggregate is not a solid you. It is a rental. It is a temporary convergence of the elements, a whirlpool in the stream of matter. It is constantly changing, shedding cells, taking in fuel, expelling waste. To cling to it as me is to cling to a cloud. The second aggregate is sensation. This is the raw feeling tone of experience. Every moment the body registers a signal, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. A cool breeze, pleasant. A sharp pain, unpleasant. The touch of the sheet, neutral. These sensations arise and pass away millions of times a day. They are like bubbles rising to the surface of a pond. They are not choices you make. They are automatic reactions of the nervous system. Yet we build our entire lives around chasing the pleasant and running from the unpleasant. We think, I am suffering, but in reality, there is just an unpleasant sensation arising, hovering, and vanishing. It is a weather event, not a definition of character. The third aggregate is perception. This is the part of the mind that labels things. It sees a shape and says, tree. It hears a sound and says, car. It feels a sensation and says, pain. Perception is the librarian of the mind, constantly categorizing the chaotic flow of data into neat little boxes. But the boxes are not the reality. The word night is not the darkness itself. The word anxiety is not the physical sensation of the racing heart. Perception is a map, often an old and inaccurate map, that we mistake for the territory. When you lie in bed and label your experience insomnia, that is perception. It is a label that carries weight, history, and fear. But if you strip away the label, what is actually there? Just lying, just breathing, just being. The fourth aggregate is mental formations. This is the most complex heap. It includes your habits, your impulses, your emotions, your decisions, and your volitions. It is the storyteller. It is the weaver from our earlier chapter, taking the raw data of sensation and perception and spinning it into a narrative. I am awake because I am worried about tomorrow. That is a mental formation. I am angry because he was rude. That is a mental formation. These are constructed realities. They are conditioned responses, grooves worn into the mind by years of repetition. They are not solid truths. They are just patterns of energy like the currents in a river. They flow, they twist, they turn, but they are not the water itself. The fifth aggregate is consciousness. This is the light that illuminates the other four. It is the basic awareness that knows an object is there. It is the screen upon which the movie plays. Without consciousness, there is no experience. But even consciousness is not a fixed self. It arises in dependence on an object. Eye consciousness arises when the eye sees color. Ear consciousness arises when the ear hears sound. It is a series of flashes, rapid and continuous, creating the illusion of a steady beam, just as a film reel creates the illusion of movement from still frames. When you see yourself as these five aggregates, form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, the heavy, solid I begins to dissolve. You are not a stagnant pond, stagnant and defined. You are a flowing river. The water that flows past the bank this second is not the same water that flowed past a moment ago. The you that started listening to this chapter is not the same you listening now. Cells have died. Thoughts have changed. Sensations have shifted. This is the great liberation. If you are a process, you are not stuck. You are not defined by your past, because the past was a different arrangement of the aggregates. You are not trapped in your anxiety, because anxiety is just a temporary configuration of sensation and mental formation. It will flow on. To rest tonight, you do not need to shut down the self. You simply need to recognize that there is no controller to shut down. There is only the flow. Watch the form breathe. Watch the sensations rise. Watch the perceptions label. Watch the formations spin. Watch the consciousness light it all up. You are the space in which this magnificent impersonal machinery operates. Let the machine run. You are free. Chapter 11. The Myth of Isolation. Having dissolved the internal solidity of the self, we now look outward to the relationship between this flowing process and the world around it. The untrained mind lives in a state of chronic isolation. It believes it is a separate entity, cut off from the rest of the universe, fighting for survival in a hostile environment. This belief is the root of deep existential loneliness. It is the feeling of being a small wave, terrified of the vast, indifferent ocean. But the wisdom of the ancients offers a different view, a view grounded in the law of paticca samuppada, or dependent origination. This law states a simple, radical truth. Nothing exists on its own. Everything exists only because of everything else. The phrase used in the texts is, "When this is, that is. When this arises, that arises." Imagine a single wave rising on the surface of the sea. It looks distinct. It has a height, a shape, a location. It might look at the other waves and think, "I am separate from them. I am bigger or smaller. I am alone." It might fear the moment it crashes against the shore, believing that will be its death. But is the wave actually separate from the ocean? Can you take a bucket, scoop up the wave, and leave the ocean behind? No, the wave is the ocean. It is a movement of the whole. The water in the wave is the water of the deep. The energy driving the wave is the wind and the moon's gravity. The wave is a temporary expression of the entire sea. You are that wave. You feel separate. You feel like you are lying in a bed, enclosed by walls, isolated in your own skin. But let us look with the eye of truth. Look at your breath. You inhale. Where does that air come from? It comes from the atmosphere, a thin layer of gas wrapping the planet. That oxygen was produced by the plankton in the sea and the forests of the continents. You are breathing the exhalation of the trees. The trees are breathing your exhalation. There is no line where the atmosphere ends and your lungs begin. It is one continuous cycle of gas exchange. You are physically tethered to the forest. Look at the gravity that holds you to the bed. It is a force generated by the mass of the earth. You are being hugged by the planet. If the earth vanished, you would not float. You would cease to exist as a biological organism. Your very weight is a relationship between your mass and the planet's mass. You are not on the earth. You are of the earth. Look at the blood in your veins. It carries nutrients from the food you ate. That food came from the soil, nourished by the sun. The sun is a star burning 93 million miles away. If the sun flickered out, your blood would freeze. The heat in your body is the stored light of a star. You are solar energy in a biological container. This is the myth of isolation. It is impossible to be alone because you are not a closed system. You are an open system, constantly exchanging energy and matter with the cosmos. The anxiety of loneliness comes from the focus on the form, aggregate, seeing only the outline of the skin. But the reality of dependent origination sees the invisible threads that connect every atom of your body to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. This understanding shifts the burden of existence. If you are a separate self, then you have to sustain yourself. You have to force your heart to beat. You have to make the breath happen. You have to carry the weight of your life. That is exhausting. But if you are a manifestation of the whole, then the universe is sustaining you. The universe is breathing you. The universe is digesting your food. The universe is holding you down with gravity. You can resign from the job of being the general manager of the universe. You can hand over the weight. The ocean carries the wave. The wave does not carry itself. Tonight, feel the support that is already here. Feel the air rushing in to keep you alive without you asking. Feel the gravity holding you safe. Feel the warmth of the star in your blood. You are not a lonely fragment wandering in the dark. You are the universe experiencing itself as a human being. You are safe because you are connected to the source of all things. The isolation is a dream. The connection is the reality. Wake up to the connection and then, secure in that vast web, let yourself drift into sleep. Chapter 12. The Monk in the Cave. To deepen this realization of connection, We must travel from the abstract ocean to a specific mountain cave to witness the journey of a man who tried to escape the web. His name was Sela. Sela was a serious monk, driven by a fierce desire for purity. He found the monastery too noisy, the other monks too distracting, the village too chaotic. He believed that other people were the source of his agitation. He believed that if he could just get away from everything, if he could sever all ties, he would find the silence of enlightenment. So Sela climbed high into the granite peaks, far above the tree line, to a cave known for its inaccessibility. He took almost nothing. He vowed to speak to no one. He would sit, he would meditate, and he would achieve liberation through sheer, uncompromised solitude. For weeks he sat in the cold silence. The wind howled outside. The stone was hard beneath him. He felt a grim satisfaction. He was alone. He was independent. He owed nothing to anyone. Each morning a villager from the valley far below would make the arduous climb to leave a single bowl of rice at the mouth of the cave. Sela would wait until the villager had left before retrieving it, careful never to make eye contact, never to acknowledge the presence of another. He ate the rice quickly, treating it as mere fuel, eager to return to his solitary work. One morning the fog was thick. Sela retrieved his bowl and sat to eat. He lifted a spoonful of the white grains to his mouth, but stopped. He remembered the teaching of his master. Look deeply, see the universe in the smallest thing. Sela decided in his arrogance to look at the rice, expecting to see only a simple white object. He looked at one grain. He closed his eyes and opened his mind's eye. He saw the whiteness, but then looking deeper, he saw the cloud. He realized that the rice could not exist without water. The rice paddy needed rain. The rain came from the cloud. The cloud came from the ocean, evaporated by the heat. He looked again. He saw the sun. The rice plant needed photosynthesis to turn light into starch. The little white grain was actually crystallized sunlight. Without the sun, there is no rice. He looked deeper. He saw the earth. The minerals in the grain, the calcium, the iron, came from the soil. The soil was made of decomposed leaves, ancient rocks, and the decay of generations of life. The rice was the earth transformed. Then Sela saw something that made his heart tremble. He saw the farmer. He saw the bent back of the man standing knee-deep in the mud of the paddy. He saw the sweat on the farmer's brow. He saw the calloused hands that planted the seedling. He saw the anxiety of the farmer watching the sky, hoping for rain. He saw the harvest. He saw the person who threshed the grain. He saw the villager who woke up in the dark to cook this rice and climb the mountain to feed a monk he would never see. Sela looked at the bowl in his lap. It was no longer just food. It was an ambassador from the world. It was a condensation of the sky, the earth, the sun, and the labor of his fellow humans. The simple bowl of rice contained the entire cosmos. The illusion of his independence shattered like a dropped mirror. He sat in the cave, the ultimate symbol of isolation, and realized he was not alone. He had never been alone. He was eating the clouds. He was eating the sun. He was eating the kindness of strangers. His body was being built moment by the very world he had tried to reject. The silence of the cave changed. It was no longer a cold, empty silence of separation. It became a pregnant, vibrating silence of connection. Sela felt the weight of his own arrogance dissolve, replaced by a crushing, beautiful gratitude. He realized that he could climb to the moon, and he would still be dependent. He would still be part of the web. The purity he sought was not in separation. It was in the recognition of the union. Chapter 13. Interbeing. Sela sat with the bowl of warm rice in his hands, tears streaming down his face, washing away the dust of his austerity. For the first time in months, he bowed. He did not bow to a statue or a deity. He bowed to the bowl of rice. He bowed to the invisible farmer. He bowed to the cloud floating past the cave entrance. He understood the profound truth that the modern master Thich Nhat Hanh would later call interbeing. To be is to interbe. You cannot just be by yourself. You can only interbe with everything else. This realization is the medicine for the weary soul who feels the weight of the world on their shoulders. We are taught to be self-made. We are taught that independence is the highest virtue. We strive to be autonomous, self-sufficient, needing no one. This striving creates a terrible tension. It is the tension of Atlas trying to hold up the sky. It is a lie that exhausts us. Sela ate the rice slowly, tasting the sun and the rain in every bite. He realized that every moment of his life was a collaboration. His meditation was supported by the food. His warmth was supported by the robe woven by another, remembering Mara, the weaver. His very thoughts were shaped by the language taught to him by his mother. When you bring this insight into your own bedroom tonight, the walls of the room seem to expand. Look at the sheets covering you. They are cotton, grown in a field, spun by a machine, stitched by a worker, transported by a driver. You are covered in a web of labor and nature. Look at the glass of water by your bedside. It is the same water that Sela saw in his vision, the cloud, the ocean, the rain. The myth of the self-made man crumbles, and in its place stands the reality of the interbeing human. This is not a demotion, it is a relief. It means you don't have to generate your own existence. You are being supported by a conspiracy of the universe. The entire cosmos has conspired to create this moment where you lie in bed. The stars died to create the carbon in your cells. The plants breathed to create the oxygen in your room. The society worked to create the safety of your home. Sela finished his meal. He walked to the mouth of the cave and looked down at the tiny village far below. He no longer saw it as a distraction. He saw it as his roots. He realized that the spiritual path is not a vertical climb away from the world, but a horizontal expansion into it. He was not separate from the villager. The villager was a part of his own lifeblood. This is the comfort of interbeing. You are part of a vast, living organism. When you rest, you are resting for the whole. When you heal the whole. You are not a solitary soldier fighting a war. You are a cell in a giant body, and the body is taking care of you. You can let go of the hypervigilance. You can put down the shield. The web holds you. Just as Sela bowed to the rice, you can mentally bow to the pillow, to the blanket, to the air. Acknowledge the support. Receive it. You are held by everything. Chapter 14. The tuning of the instrument. We descend from Sela's cave, carrying the warmth of connection, and return to the riverbank where the Prince Siddhartha once sat before he became the Buddha. We return to the moment of his greatest physical desperation, to understand the mechanism of balance. This is the teaching of the middle way. It is not a philosophy of compromise. It is a technical instruction for the tuning of the human nervous system. Siddhartha had lived two lives. First, he lived the life of the palace. This was the life of total indulgence. Soft beds, sweet music, rich food, constant pleasure. The string of his life was too loose. It was flabby. It made no sound because it had no tension, no discipline, no direction. The mind was dull, heavy with sleep and luxury. It was the state of a swamp, stagnant and suffocating. Then he swung to the opposite extreme. He entered the forest. He clenched his teeth. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping. He tried to force his mind into submission through pain. This was the life of the ascetic. The string of his life was pulled tight, tighter, tighter. It screeched with tension. It was brittle. It was about to snap. The mind was agitated, sharp, and frantic with the effort of control. He was sitting by the river, dizzy with hunger, when a barge floated by. On the barge was a musician teaching a student how to play the sitar. The voice of the musician drifted across the water, carrying a message that would unlock the prince's mind. "If you tighten the string too much," the musician said, "it will snap. If you leave it too loose, it will not play. The note lies in the middle." The physics of sound struck Siddhartha like a lightning bolt. He looked at his own body. He was the tight string. He was vibrating with the stress of starvation and sleep deprivation. He was trying to produce the music of enlightenment, but he was only producing the noise of strain. He realized that the nervous system cannot process truth when it is in a state of emergency. This is the instruction for your sleep tonight. You are likely oscillating between the two extremes. During the day, perhaps you are too loose, distracted, scrolling, numbing yourself, avoiding the work. Then, at night, you become too tight, anxious, rigid, trying to force yourself to sleep, trying to control the mind. You are either the swamp or the snapping string. The middle way is the tuning. It is the precise tension required for the music of rest. It means you do not indulge the mind's chaotic stories, too loose, but you also do not fight them with anger, too tight. You treat your attention like the tuning peg of the sitar. When you notice you are clenching your jaw, you are too tight. Gently loosen. Turn the peg. When you notice you are drifting into a nightmare of tomorrow's worries, you are too loose. Gently tighten. Bring the focus back to the breath. Siddhartha ate the rice milk. He tuned his instrument. He found the place where the body was strong enough to sit upright, but relaxed enough to breathe deeply. He found the place where the mind was alert enough to observe, but calm enough to not react. This is the zone of the middle way. It is a dynamic balance. It is not a frozen point. It is a constant, gentle adjustment. Tonight, imagine your spine is that string. Feel the tension. Is it ready to snap with anxiety? Soften it. Is it collapsing into a heap of hopelessness? Straighten it with dignity. Find the note. The note is a hum of presence. It is the feeling of being here, alert but resting, not striving, not collapsing, just tuning. Listen for the sound of your own breath. If it is jagged, smooth it out. If it is shallow, deepen it. You are the musician. The body is the instrument. The sleep you seek is the music. It will only come when the string is tuned, not too tight, not too loose, just right. Chapter 15. The Sitar String. We remain by the riverbank, the echo of the musician's voice still drifting over the water. If the string is too tight, it snaps. If it is too loose, it does not play. This is not merely a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment. It is a precise physiological description of the state of your nervous system as you lie here tonight. To enter the deep, restorative territory of sleep, we must apply the physics of the sitar string to the biology of the human body. We must understand the mechanics of resonance. A stringed instrument works through tension. The string is anchored at 2 points. If there is zero tension, if the string is slack and you pluck it, there is no vibration. There is only a dull thud. The energy is absorbed by the slackness and dies instantly. This is the state of the too loose mind. In modern terms, we call this the freeze response or a state of hypoarousal. It is the feeling of numbness, of dissociation, of scrolling endlessly through screens without actually seeing what you are looking at. It is a collapse of energy. When you are in this state, you might feel tired, but it is a heavy, stagnant tiredness, not a restful one. You are a slack string, unable to sing the song of restoration. On the other hand, if you turn the tuning peg too far, the tension builds. The molecules of the wire are pulled apart. The string becomes rigid. If you pluck it, the sound is high, screeching and sharp. And if you turn it just a fraction more, the structural integrity fails. It snaps. This is the too tight mind. This is hyperarousal. It is the sympathetic nervous system flooding the body with cortisol and adrenaline. It is the feeling of the fight or flight response kicking in when there is no tiger to fight. It is the clenched jaw, the raised shoulders, the racing heart, the mind that scans the future for threats that do not exist. Most people suffering from sleeplessness are living as the tight string. You are vibrating at a frequency that is too high for rest. You are holding yourself together with a muscular and mental grip, terrified that if you let go, you will collapse. You believe that this tension is keeping you safe. You believe that if you worry hard enough, you will solve the problems of tomorrow. But the physics of the instrument tells us the truth. Excess tension does not produce better music. It destroys the instrument. The practice of the middle way is the art of the sweet spot. It is the precise calibration of energy where the string is taut enough to maintain structure, but loose enough to vibrate freely. In this zone, and only in this zone, does resonance occur. Resonance is when the vibration of the string aligns with the acoustics of the wood, creating a sound that is rich, warm, and sustaining. In the body, this is the state of rest and digest. It is the parasympathetic nervous system engaging. It is the heart rate slowing down, not because it is stopping, but because it is finding a coherent rhythm. How do we tune the human instrument? We do not do it all at once. We do it peg by peg. Imagine your body is the sitar, your muscles are the strings. Your attention is the hand of the musician. Start with the jaw. For many, the jaw is the primary anchor of tension. It is where we hold the words we did not speak and the anger we did not express. Is the jaw clenched? That is a string tuned too high. Gently, consciously unhinge it. Let the mouth open slightly. Feel the tension drain out of the masseter muscles. You are turning the peg down. You are lowering the pitch. Move to the shoulders. Are they pulled up toward the ears, as if trying to protect the neck from a blow? That is the posture of defense. It is the tight string. Exhale and let them drop. Let gravity take them. Feel the distance between your earlobes and your shoulders increase. You are retuning the instrument. Move to the belly. The too tight mind holds the stomach in a knot, bracing for impact. The too loose mind leaves it feeling empty and hollow. The middle way is a soft, rising and falling belly. Breathe into it. Let it expand. Let it soften. This tuning process is not a one-time event. It is a continuous practice. The Prince Siddhartha did not just tune his mind once and stay enlightened forever. He had to constantly adjust. As he sat under the tree, doubt would arise. The string would tighten. He would notice it and he would soften. Sleepiness would arise. The string would go slack. He would notice it and he would straighten his spine, bringing fresh energy. The middle way is the path of right effort. It is the effort that is sustainable. It is the effort of the marathon runner, not the sprinter. Tonight, you do not need to try to sleep. Trying is tension. Trying is the tight string. But you also do not need to give up and despair. Giving up is the loose string. Instead, you simply position yourself for sleep. You create the conditions. You tune the body to the frequency of rest. You align the spine, you slow the breath, you soften the eyes, and then you wait. You wait for the music to come to you. You wait for the resonance of sleep to vibrate through the instrument you have so carefully prepared. Chapter 16, The Wing of Compassion. The bird of wisdom cannot fly with only one wing. We have spent much of our journey constructing the first wing, the wing of insight. We have looked at friction, impermanence, the illusion of the self, and the web of connection. We have dismantled the chariot and tuned the sitar. This is the work of the intellect and the observer. It is cool, clear, and sharp, but a bird with only one wing, no matter how strong, will only spin in circles on the ground. To take flight into the open sky of peace, we must unfurl the second wing. This is the wing of metta, or loving kindness. In the West, we often mistake kindness for an emotion. We think of it as a warm, fuzzy feeling that arises spontaneously when we see a puppy or a child. We think of love as something we fall into, an accident of chemistry. But in the ancient psychology of the East, metta is not an accident. It is not a feeling that you wait for. It is a technology. It is a deliberate, systematic cultivation of a specific mental state. It is agriculture. Imagine the mind is a field. For many of us, this field is parched. The soil is dry and cracked. Nothing grows there but the thorny weeds of self-criticism and the bitter roots of resentment. We look at this barren field and say, "I have no love in my heart." But the farmer does not look at a dry field and say, "There is no corn here, so I will give up." The farmer looks at the field and says, "The conditions for corn are absent. I must create them." Metta is the irrigation system for the heart. It is the practice of watering the seeds of goodwill that lie dormant in the soil of every human consciousness. The word metta comes from the root metta, which means friend. It is not necessarily romantic love or passionate desire. It is the quality of unconditional friendliness. It is the wish for well-being. It is the energy of non-harming. The physics of hatred and judgment are simple. They are forces of contraction. When you judge yourself for being awake, your mind contracts. It gets small, hot, and hard. It creates a barrier. When you are angry at a noise outside, you contract against it. This contraction consumes immense amounts of energy. It is exhausting to be at war with the world. The physics of metta is the force of expansion. When you offer kindness, the mind relaxes. It opens, it cools, it creates space. And in that space, sleep can enter. You cannot force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals with pliers. You will only destroy the flower, but you can water the soil, you can provide sunlight, you can protect it from the wind, and then the flower blooms by itself. The practice of cultivating this wing begins with the hardest person to love, yourself. You are likely your own harshest critic. You lie there and berate yourself for your failures, your anxieties, your inability to rest. You treat yourself with a harshness you would never inflict on a friend. Metta reverses this. It invites you to treat yourself with the same tenderness you would show to a frightened child or a wounded animal. The method is simple. It uses phrases as seeds. You drop these seeds into the mind over and over again, regardless of how the soil looks. You say silently, "May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease." At first, these words may feel mechanical. They may feel dry, like dropping stones onto concrete. Your mind might shout back, "But I am not happy. I am not at ease." This is the resistance of the dry soil. It does not matter. The rain does not ask the desert if it wants to be wet. The rain just falls. You repeat the phrases not to lie to yourself, but to set an intention. You are inclining the mind toward kindness. You are digging the irrigation ditches. With every repetition, you are rewiring the neural pathways of the brain. You are moving traffic away from the highway of self-correction and onto the path of self-acceptance. You are teaching your nervous system that it is safe to let down its guard. Tonight, as you lie here, unfurl this second wing. Stop trying to be wise for a moment and just try to be kind. Be kind to the body that is tired. Be kind to the mind that is racing. It is racing because it is trying to protect you. Thank it for its effort and then wrap it in the blanket of goodwill. May I be at ease. Let the words sink into the marrow of your bones. May I be peaceful. Let the vibration of the wish soothe the friction of the day. You are the farmer. The mind is the field. The kindness is the water. Keep watering. The bloom of rest is inevitable if the soil is kept moist. Chapter 17. The Critic and the Deer. To understand how the mechanical practice of metta transforms into a living reality, we enter the forest monastery of a monk named Vimal. Vimal was not a naturally peaceful man. He was sharp, intellectual, and driven. He had joined the order because he wanted to perfect himself. He saw his mind as a project to be managed, and his flaws as enemies to be destroyed. He was the master of the too tight string. His inner world was a battlefield. If his mind wandered during meditation, he would mentally punish himself. "You are weak," the voice would say. "You are undisciplined." He looked at the other monks and saw only their faults. One walked too loudly, another ate too greedily, a third breathed with a distracting wheeze. Vimal's world was a catalogue of errors, and he was the chief actuary. His teacher, a wise old master, who saw the tightness in Vimal's jaw and the hardness in his eyes, gave him a punishment, or so Vimal thought. "You are forbidden from studying the scriptures," the master said. "You are forbidden from the complex meditations. For the next month, you will do only one thing. You will take this smooth river stone, you will walk the forest path, and with every step, you will hold the stone to your heart and say, 'May I be well, may I be at peace.' That is all." Vimal was insulted. This felt like a practice for children. It was beneath his intellect, but he had vowed obedience. So he took the stone. It was cold and hard, just like his heart. He walked the path. Step, "May I be well." Step, "May I be at peace." He muttered the words through clenched teeth. He felt nothing but irritation. He hated the stone. He hated the phrase. He hated himself for having to do it. Days passed. The practice remained dry. He was just a machine repeating data, but the master had said, "Do not judge the practice, just do it." So Vimal walked. He walked until the soles of his feet were tough. He walked until the stone began to feel warm from the heat of his hand. One morning, just as the mist was lifting from the forest floor, Vimal turned a corner on the path and stopped dead. Standing 10 feet away was a mother deer and her fawn. The fawn was tangled in a patch of thorny briars, bleating softly in distress. The mother was nuzzling it, not with panic, but with a profound, quiet reassurance. She was licking the fawn's face, her large, dark eyes soft and unblinking. She was not judging the fawn for getting trapped. She was not angry at the briars. She was simply present, offering her warmth, waiting for the fawn to calm down so it could extricate itself. Vimal watched, holding his breath. He saw the pure, undiluted quality of care. He saw that the mother's love was not an idea. It was a physical force. It was the atmosphere she created around the suffering of her child. Something inside Vimal broke. It was a physical sensation, like a sheet of ice cracking on a frozen lake. He looked at the stone in his hand. He realized he was the fawn. He was trapped in the briars of his own judgment, caught in the thorns of his perfectionism. And for years he had been standing over himself, screaming, "Get up! Be better!" He dropped to his knees in the dirt. The deer, startled, bounded away, but the lesson remained. Vimal pressed the stone to his chest. But this time, he didn't just say the words. He felt them. He imagined holding his own struggling mind with the same tenderness the doe held her fawn. "May I be well," he whispered, and tears, hot and fast, spilled onto his robes. "May I be at peace." The words were no longer dry seeds. They were rain. The thaw had begun. He realized that he could not hate himself into a better version of himself. He could only love himself into healing. When he returned to the monastery, he saw the monk who walked loudly. He didn't feel the familiar spike of irritation. He felt a wave of warmth. He walks loudly because he is joyous, Vimal thought. May he be well. He saw the monk who ate greedily. He is hungry, Vimal thought. May he be nourished. The practice had rewired his perception. He was no longer the critic. He was the well-wisher. The fortress of his judgment had crumbled, and in its place was an open field where kindness could roam wild. Vimal slept that night without struggle, the stone resting on his bedside table, a monument to the day he stopped fighting the briars and started loving the fawn. Chapter 18. The Sky Behind the Clouds. Vimal's transformation brings us to the ultimate nature of the mind, a secret that has been hidden in plain sight throughout our entire journey. We have spoken of the friction, the noise, the cracks, and the storms. But where do all these things happen? They happen in the mind. But what is the mind? The Buddha described the fundamental nature of consciousness as prabhasvara citta, the luminous mind. He compared it to the sky. Imagine the sky on a stormy day. The clouds are thick, black, and turbulent. The wind is screaming. Lightning tears through the darkness. It looks terrifying. It looks like the sky is being destroyed. But get in an airplane and fly upward. Rise through the rain. Rise through the thunderhead. Rise through the turbulence. Suddenly, you break through the top layer of the clouds. What do you find? The sun is shining. The blue is endless, vast, and still. The silence is absolute. And here is the crucial realization. The storm was not happening to the sky. The storm was happening in the sky. The clouds, no matter how dark or acidic, never stained the blue. The lightning never burned the atmosphere. The wind never disturbed the stillness of space. The sky contained the storm, but it was never damaged by it. This is the nature of your mind. You identify with the clouds. You think, I am an anxious person. I am a depressed person. I am a broken person. But these are just weather patterns. They are the clouds passing through the space of your awareness. The awareness itself, the part of you that knows you are anxious, the part of you that feels the depression is the sky. It is vast. It is open. It is stainless. You cannot break the sky. You cannot paint the sky black. You can only obscure it temporarily. This is the return to the story of the diamond in the coat from our first chapter. The diamond represents this luminous mind. The dirty, ragged coat represents the clouds of your conditioning, your trauma, and your habitual thoughts. You have spent your life looking at the coat, trying to patch the holes, trying to wash the stains, thinking that you are the coat. But the diamond inside has never lost a single watt of its brilliance. It has been waiting, radiant and whole, beneath the layers of dirt. You do not need to create peace. Peace is not a manufactured product. Peace is the nature of the sky when the clouds part. You do not need to fix your mind. You only need to remember its true nature. Consider the metaphor of the guest house. Your awareness is the house. Your thoughts and emotions are the guests. Some guests are polite and pleasant, joy, calm. Some guests are rude, messy, and loud, fear, anger, insomnia. The untrained mind thinks, I must kick out the rude guests and only keep the nice ones. So you spend all your energy fighting the intruders, barring the door, arguing with the fear. This creates a riot in the living room. The wise mind says, I am the host, I am the house. The house does not fight the guests. The house holds space for them. The house knows that the guests are temporary. They check in, they stay for a while, and they check out. Even the most difficult guest eventually packs their bags and leaves. Tonight, practice being the sky, not the cloud. Practice being the house, not the guest. When a worried thought arises, do not say, I am worried. Say, a worry cloud is passing through the sky. See the distance between you and the thought. Shift your identity from the content of the experience to the context of the experience. You are the witness. The witness is not tired. The witness is not afraid. The witness is the diamond, pure, indestructible, and radiantly awake to the present moment. Rest in that spaciousness. Let the weather rage if it must. You are the atmosphere that holds it all, untouched, unharmed, and infinitely free. Chapter 19. The Diamond in the Coat. We return now to the story we left hanging in the very first hour of our journey, the story of the traveler and the coat. This is not just a parable, it is the resolution of the mystery of your own worth. We left the poor man walking the dusty roads, shivering in the cold, begging for scraps of food. He believes he is destitute. He defines himself by his poverty. He looks at his ragged coat and sees only shame. He does not know that while he slept in the house of his friend, a treasure was sewn into the lining. Years pass in the story. The traveler grows old. His back bends under the weight of his perceived misfortune. He develops a philosophy of lack. He tells himself, "I am unlucky, I am unworthy. The world is a hard place where I must fight for every crumb." This story becomes his reality. He lives it, breathes it, and suffers it. Every time he feels the hard lump in the hem of his coat against his side, he ignores it, thinking it is just a knot of hardened fabric, another sign of his shabbiness. Then destiny circles back. One day, in a crowded marketplace, the wealthy merchant spots his old friend. He is shocked by what he sees. He rushes over, pushing through the crowd, and grabs the traveler by the shoulders. "My friend," the merchant cries, Why are you living like this? Why are you begging?" The traveler looks up, his eyes dull with resignation. "Because I have nothing," he says. "I am a beggar. That is what I am." The merchant shakes his head violently. "No, you are not a beggar. You are a wealthy man. Years ago I gave you a diamond. I sewed it into this very coat. It is priceless. It could have bought you an entire kingdom. It could have fed you for 1,000 lifetimes. The traveler stares at him, confused. He thinks the merchant is mocking him. "I have no diamond," he whispers. The merchant kneels down in the dust. He takes a small knife from his belt. He grabs the hem of the dirty, tattered coat, the coat the traveler has worn every single day, the coat he thought was his badge of shame. With a few careful movements, the merchant cuts the threads. The fabric falls open, and there, catching the midday sun, is the stone. It is flawless. It explodes with light, sending rainbows dancing across the dusty ground. It is the most beautiful thing the traveler has ever seen. The traveler begins to weep. He weeps not just for joy, but for the tragedy of the lost years. He realizes that he walked through famine carrying a feast. He walked through poverty carrying a fortune. The suffering of the last 10 years was real, but it was unnecessary. It was born entirely of ignorance. He did not need to become rich. He simply needed to know that he already was. This is the most critical moment of our night together. You must understand that you are the traveler, the anxiety, the depression, the feeling of not being enough. These are the rags. You have identified with the rags. You say, "I am an anxious person." You say, "I am broken." You say, "I am incomplete." You have built an entire identity around your struggle. But the teaching of the Buddha nature, the Tathagatagarbha, is the merchant with the knife. It cuts through the fabric of your self-limiting stories to reveal what has been there all along. The peace you are trying to find by listening to this audio, the rest you are chasing, the validation you crave from the world, it is all sewn into the hem of your own awareness. You possess a mind that is naturally luminous, naturally aware, and naturally peaceful. This is not a metaphor. Beneath the noise of the thoughts, there is a silent witness. That witness is the diamond. It has been with you in your darkest moments. When you were crying at 3 a.m., the witness was there, silent and whole. When you failed at that job, the witness was there, watching, untouched by the failure. The tragedy of the human condition is that we look outside for what is already inside. We try to earn our worth. We try to buy peace. We try to fix ourselves. but you cannot polish a diamond that is already perfect. You can only remove the dirt that covers it. Tonight, you do not need to acquire anything new. You do not need to become a better sleeper. You do not need to become a spiritual person. You simply need to feel the lump in the coat. Turn your attention inward. Stop looking at the thoughts, the rags, and look at the awareness that sees the thoughts, the jewel. Feel the presence that is listening. That presence is not tired. That presence is not worried about tomorrow. That presence is pure value. It is the wealth of the universe condensed into a point of consciousness, and it belongs to you. It is you. The merchant has arrived. The thread is cut. The jewel is revealed. You can stop begging now. You can stop striving. The poverty is a dream. The wealth is the reality. Lay down the burden of trying to be enough and simply rest in the brilliance of what you already are. Chapter 20. The Archer's Paradox. Now that we have discovered the diamond, we need a tool to keep our attention focused on it. The mind is habituated to looking at the rags. It loves the distraction of the dirt. To retrain the mind to see the jewel, we need the skill of the master archer. We need the twin powers of sati, mindfulness, and samadhi, concentration. Imagine an ancient archery range. The master archer stands at the line. The target is far away, a tiny red dot in the distance. The wind is blowing across the field. The crowd is murmuring. A bird flies overhead. An amateur archer steps up. He is desperate to hit the bullseye. His mind is filled with the future. I must hit this, he thinks. If I miss, I will be humiliated. If I hit, I will be a hero. His muscles are tense with the desire for the result. He looks at the target, but his mind is actually on the crowd. He pulls the bowstring, but his hands are shaking with the fear of failure. He releases the arrow, and it flies wide, landing in the dirt. He failed because he was not present. He was living in the future. Now the master archer steps up. He steps into the same wind. He hears the same crowd. But his internal reality is completely different. He is not thinking about the bullseye. The bullseye is just a direction. He is not thinking about the prize. The prize is irrelevant. He brings his attention entirely into his body. He feels his feet rooting into the earth. He feels the texture of the bowstring against his fingertips. He feels the breath entering his lungs. Inhale, exhale. He enters a state of profound connection with the present moment. He is not aiming at the target. He is aligning with the wind. He draws the string back. There is no tension in his mind, only the necessary tension in the bow. He reaches the point of stillness, the gap between the inhale and the exhale. In that gap, there is no archer, no bow, and no target. There is only the act of aiming. He releases the arrow. He does not let go of it. He simply allows it to leave. The arrow flies true, not because he wanted it to, but because he was fully there to guide it. This is the archer's paradox. To hit the target, you must forget the target. To achieve the goal, you must abandon the desire for the goal and become the process. This is the exact instruction for your sleep. Sleep is the target. You are the archer. All day long, and especially now in bed, you have been staring at the bullseye thinking, I must sleep. I need to sleep. If I don't sleep, tomorrow will be ruined. This is the amateur mind. It creates tension. It creates the too tight string. It guarantees a miss. Mindfulness tells you to lower the bow. Forget the target of sleep. Sleep will happen when the conditions are right. Your job is not the result. Your job is the process. Your process is simple. Feel the pillow. Feel the breath. Inhale, exhale. When the mind wanders to the crowd, the worries, gently bring it back to the bowstring, the breath. Do not judge the distraction. The master archer does not get angry at the wind. He adjusts for it. Mindfulness is the art of the gap. Between every stimulus and every response, there is a tiny space. A thought arises. I am still awake. That is the stimulus. The amateur reaction is panic. Oh no, look at the time. The mindful archer sees the thought, I am awake. He steps into the gap. In that silence, he chooses a different response. He chooses, yes, I am awake. The body is resting. I am safe. He stays in the gap. Tonight, become the master archer. Stop aiming at the future. Stop trying to hit the bullseye of 8 hours of rest. Just stand at the line. Feel this breath and then this one. Anchor yourself in the physical reality of the moment. When you stop trying to hit sleep, sleep will naturally arrive. It will come like the arrow finding the center, guided by the steady hand of your own presence. Chapter 21. The Burden of the Raft. We have learned to aim. Now we must learn to put the bow down. We must learn the art of nekama, or letting go. This is a subtle art. It is not about throwing things away in anger. It is about understanding their utility and their limit. To understand this, the Buddha told one of his most famous parables, the parable of the raft. Imagine a man traveling through a dangerous wilderness. He comes to the edge of a wide, terrifying river. The current is fast, the water is deep, and there are crocodiles circling in the eddies. He looks back. The wilderness is full of predators. He looks forward. The other shore is safe, a land of meadows and peace. But there is no bridge. There is no boat. He knows he cannot swim it. The current is too strong. So he acts with great intelligence. He gathers logs, branches, and vines. He works hard, tying them together to build a sturdy raft. He pushes the raft into the water, climbs on, and using his hands and feet, he paddles with all his might. The journey is difficult, but the raft holds him up. It protects him from the deep water. It saves his life. After a long struggle, he reaches the other shore. He steps onto the dry land of the safe country. He is exhausted but grateful. He looks at the raft bobbing in the shallows. He thinks, this raft was so useful to me. It saved me from the river. It is a wonderful raft. I cannot leave it behind. So the man hoists the heavy, waterlogged raft onto his shoulders. He begins to walk inland toward the mountains, but the raft is crushing him. It weighs hundreds of pounds. His back aches, his legs buckle. He cannot fit through the narrow paths of the forest because the raft is too wide. He cannot climb the hills because the weight pulls him down. He is in the safe country, but he is suffering. The very tool that liberated him from the river has now become his prison on the land. The Buddha asked, is this man a wise man? The answer, of course, is number. A wise man would realize that the raft is for crossing over, not for holding on to. A wise man would say, thank you, raft, and leave it at the water's edge, continuing his journey light and free. This story is the diagnosis of your current burden. We all build rafts. We build mechanisms to survive the difficult rivers of our lives. Anxiety is a raft. At some point in your life, perhaps when you were young, you learned that being hypervigilant saved you. Watching people's faces for anger saved you. Worrying about the future prevented bad things from happening. It was a useful tool. It got you across a dangerous river. Perfectionism is a raft. Working yourself to the bone saved you from criticism. It got you the job. It earned you the praise. It kept you safe from the feeling of unworthiness. But now look at where you are. You are in bed. The river is behind you. The tiger is not in the room. You are on the safe shore. Yet you are still carrying the raft. You are lying on a soft mattress, but your mind is carrying the heavy, waterlogged logs of vigilance and control. You are crushing yourself with a tool that is no longer needed for this terrain. The teaching of letting go is not about saying the raft was bad. Do not hate your anxiety. Do not hate your defense mechanisms. They served you. They kept you alive. Honor them, but recognize that you cannot climb the mountain of peace while carrying a boat on your back. Tonight is the moment to lay it down. You can mentally walk to the shoreline. Feel the weight of the worry you have been carrying all day. Feel the weight of the identity you have built. Look at it. Acknowledge it. Say, "Thank you. You helped me cross." And then slide it off your shoulders. Let it splash gently into the water. Watch it drift away downstream. Feel the sensation of your spine straightening. Feel the lightness in your shoulders. You are free to walk into the meadow of sleep. You do not need the raft here. The ground is solid. You are safe. Walk on unburdened. Chapter 22. The emptiness of the cup. Having laid down the heavy raft, we are light enough to approach the highest peak of wisdom. This is the teaching that often scares people, but only because it is misunderstood. It is the teaching of sunyata, or emptiness. The word emptiness sounds like a void. It sounds like a dark room with nothing in it. But in the language of the Buddha, emptiness does not mean nothingness. It means fullness. It means empty of a separate self, and therefore full of everything else. To understand this, let us visit the nun Prajna and the young monk Anatta. Anatta was terrified of emptiness. He liked solid things. He liked to point to a stone and say, "Stone." He liked to point to himself and say, "Me." The idea that these things were empty made him feel dizzy, as if the ground were dissolving beneath his feet. Nun Prajna saw his fear. She handed him a simple clay cup. "Tell me about this cup," she said. "It is a cup," Anatta said. "It is solid. It is here." "Look closer," Prajna said. "Where is the cup? Is the clay the cup?" "No," Anatta said. "The clay is just earth." "Is the shape the cup?" she asked. "No, the shape is just space defined by the clay." "Is the name cup the cup?" "No, that is just a sound." Prajna smiled. "This object is made entirely of non-cup elements. It is made of earth. It is made of water that softened the clay. It is made of the fire that hardened it in the kiln. It is made of the potter's hands. It is made of the potter's breakfast that gave him the energy to spin the wheel. If you take away the earth, the water, the fire, the potter, and the name, what is left?" Anatta looked. "Nothing," he whispered. "Exactly," Prajna said. "The cup is empty of a separate, independent cup self. It cannot exist alone. It is a convergence of the entire universe. Because it is empty, it can hold tea. If it were solid, it would be useless." She pointed to a wave on the ocean. "Look at the wave. It has a form. It rises and falls. But is there any part of the wave that is not ocean? No. The wave is empty of a separate identity. It is just the ocean waving, because it is empty of self. It is full of water. This is the antidote to the ultimate fear, the fear of insignificance. We strive to be somebodies because we are terrified of being nobodies. We build our fortresses, as we saw in Chapter 8, to protect this solid little me. But the teaching of emptiness says, you are not a solid little cup. You are a moment of the universe converging. You are made of non-you elements. You are made of stardust, river water, ancient genetics, language, culture, and love. You are empty of a rigid, isolated ego. This is the most relaxing truth in existence. It means you don't have to defend your boundaries because you don't really have any. You don't have to protect the self because the self is just a beautiful, temporary arrangement of the universe, like a cloud or a wave. When you see the emptiness of the cup, you stop grasping at it. You hold it lightly. If it breaks, it breaks. It was just earth and fire anyway. When you see the emptiness of your anxiety, you stop fearing it. It is not a solid monster. It is just a convergence of fatigue, hormones, and thoughts. It is empty of a core. It is a cloud passing through. Tonight, dissolve into this emptiness. Let the hard edges of your identity soften. You do not end at your skin. You extend into the air, into the gravity, into the history that made you. You are vast. You are spacious. Sleep flows easily into an empty cup. It cannot flow into a cup that is already full of me. Empty yourself of the small self and be filled with the great peace of the whole. Chapter 23. The Law of the Seed. We arrive now at the engine room of your reality. We have dismantled the vehicle, tuned the instrument, and emptied the cup. Now we must understand how the world is built, moment by moment. This brings us to the teaching of karma. In the West, this word has been distorted. It is often spoken of as a cosmic reward system, a divine scoreboard, or a form of fatalistic punishment. People say, "It is my karma," implying they are victims of a destiny written in stone before they were born. But the Buddha did not teach fatalism. He taught empowerment. The word karma literally means action, but not just any action. It refers to action driven by intention. The Sanskrit word is cetana, volition, the will, the seed of the mind. The teaching is simple. You are not the victim of the world. You are the architect of your experience. You are planting seeds in every second of your existence. To understand this, let us look at the story of two brothers who lived on adjacent farms in a fertile valley. They were both hard-working men. They planted the same crops, rice and barley, in the same soil under the same sun. One year, just days before the harvest, a terrible storm swept down from the mountains. It was a monsoon of unprecedented violence. Winds tore the roofs off the barns. Hail smashed the tender stalks of the grain. In one night, the work of a year was flattened into mud. The external event was identical for both brothers. The loss was absolute, but the karma, the reality they lived in following the storm, was entirely different. The first brother looked at his ruined fields and felt a seed of bitterness crack open in his chest. He watered this seed with thoughts of injustice. "Why me?" he screamed at the sky. "I worked so hard. This is unfair. The gods hate me." He looked at his neighbors and felt envy that their houses were less damaged. He snapped at his wife. He kicked his dog. He sank into a depression, refusing to clear the debris because he believed it was pointless. He planted seeds of anger, victimization, and isolation. His reality became a hell of his own making. The storm destroyed his crop, but his reaction destroyed his life. The second brother walked out into the same mud. He felt the same grief. He felt the cold rain on his face. But he did not plant the seed of blame. He planted the seed of acceptance. He thought, "This has happened. The storm is nature. It is not personal." Then he planted a seed of resilience. We are still alive. We have our strength. Then he planted a seed of community. He walked to his brother's house, the brother who was screaming, and offered his hand. "Let us clear the fields together," he said. "We can replant for the winter season if we start now." The second brother lived in a reality of connection, purpose, and hope. The external disaster was the same, but the internal harvest was opposite. This is the law of karma. It is not about what happens to you. It is about the intention you bring to what happens. This teaching is the ultimate reclamation of power for the sleepless mind. You might think, "I am awake. This is bad. I am suffering." That is the first arrow. That is the storm. But then you add the karma. You add the reaction. You plant seeds of fear. "I will be a wreck tomorrow." You plant seeds of self-judgment. "I am broken." You plant seeds of anger. "Why can't I just sleep?" These mental actions are the karma that keeps the cycle of suffering spinning. You are watering the weeds of anxiety. But the law of the seed tells you that in this very second, right now, you have the power to plant something else. You cannot change the fact that you are awake. The storm has passed, but you can change the intention of the next breath. You can say, "I am awake and I choose to rest my body with kindness." That is a seed of metta. You can say, this moment is impermanent and it will pass. That is a seed of wisdom. You can say, I surrender the need to control. That is a seed of peace. Every time you choose a gentle response over a harsh one, you are rewriting your destiny. You are changing the neural pathways of your brain. You are clearing the mud from the field. Karma is not a cage. It is a steering wheel. You are driving this chariot. Tonight, plant the seeds of rest. Do not worry about the harvest of sleep. The harvest will come when it is ready. Just attend to the planting. Plant a soft breath. Plant a relaxed muscle. Plant a thought of gratitude. If you plant corn, you get corn. If you plant peace, you get peace. It is a law as reliable as gravity. Trust the seed. Trust the soil of your mind. The storm is over. The planting has begun. Chapter 24, Dropping the Boulder. We have walked a long path tonight. We have woven the threads, turned the wheel, repaired the cracks, and planted the seeds. Now we arrive at the destination. We arrive at the concept that is the cessation of all the striving we have discussed. The word is nirvana. To the Western ear, nirvana sounds like a mythical heaven, a place you go when you die, filled with clouds and harps. But the literal translation of the Sanskrit word is much more practical, much more visceral, and much more applicable to your night of sleep. Nirvana literally means to blow out. Imagine a candle flame. It flickers. It consumes the wax. It dances frantically in the wind. It is hot. This flame represents the three poisons that fuel our suffering: the fire of greed, wanting things to be different; the fire of hatred, pushing things away; and the fire of delusion, not seeing things clearly. As long as these fires burn, there is heat, there is smoke, there is the consumption of energy. Nirvana is the moment the fuel runs out. It is the moment you stop feeding the fire. It is the great hue of the candle being blown out. It is the cooling. It is the peace that remains when the agitation ceases. Recall the presage from our very first chapter. I told you that you were carrying a boulder on your back, a heavy stone that you had carried for so long you believed it was part of your spine. You have walked through your whole life, bent over, straining, sweating, thinking that this weight was you. You thought the pressure in your shoulders was just the sensation of being alive. The teaching of nirvana is the realization that the boulder is not glued to you. It is held there by one thing only: your own gripping. You are clutching the stone with the hands of your mind, terrified to let go because you don't know who you would be without the weight. You define yourself by your struggle. I am the one who carries this burden. But the path we have walked tonight, the insight into friction, the letting go of the raft, the seeing of the empty cup, has loosened your fingers. You are beginning to understand that you do not need the stone. The act of nirvana is the act of standing up straight. It is the physical and mental sensation of the weight sliding off your shoulders and hitting the earth with a dull thud. What is left when the boulder is gone? Is it nothingness? No, it is lightness. It is a profound, spacious relief. It is the ability to breathe with the full capacity of your lungs for the first time. It is the freedom to move. Tonight, you can experience a micro-nirvana. You can blow out the candle of the need to sleep. You are gripping the boulder of tomorrow's energy. You are thinking, I must carry this worry so I am prepared. But you don't. The worry is just a heavy rock. It does not help you climb. It only crushes you. Visualize it now. Feel the heavy sack of your anxieties, your identity, your history, your to-do list. It is heavy, rough, and burdensome. Now, simply open your hands. You don't have to throw it. Just open your grip. Gravity will do the rest. Feel it slide away. Feel the space opening up behind your neck. Feel the coolness where the heat of the burden used to be. This is the cooling. The fire of I need is blown out. The fire of I fear is blown out. What remains is the cool moonlight of the mind. You are not empty in a negative way. You are empty of debris. You are clear. In this state, sleep is not something you do. It is not a task. It is simply what happens when the interference is gone. When the wind stops, the lake becomes a mirror. You do not force the lake to be still. You just stop stirring it. You have stopped stirring. The boulder is on the ground. The candle is out. The smoke is clearing. There is nothing left to do but drift in the cool, dark, velvet space of your own liberation. Chapter 25. The Living Silence. We have reached the end of the words. We have traveled from the prince under the tree to the weaver at her loom. We have sat with the potter and his gold, walked with the traveler and his diamond, and stood with the archer in the wind. All of these stories, all of these metaphors, were just fingers pointing at the moon. They were not the moon itself. The moon is the silence that is now rising in your room. You are no longer the weaver, frantically trying to tie the knots of your life together. You are the loom, holding the threads of night and day with equal strength. You are no longer the potter, judging the cracks in your being. You are the gold, filling the spaces with resilience and beauty. You are no longer the traveler, begging for rest. You are the wealthy man, finally aware of the jewel sewn into the lining of your breath. You are no longer the soldier in the fortress. You are the sky, vast and stainless, watching the clouds pass without fear. The raft has been left at the riverbank. The boulder has been dropped. The seed has been planted. The fire has been cooled. What remains is the luminous mind. It is the silence that does not need to be created, only uncovered. Listen to it. It is humming behind the sound of my voice. It is the sound of your own existence, stripped of the struggle. It is the vibration of I am, not I am tired or I am worried, simply I am. You have returned to the factory settings of the human soul. You have downloaded the update. The operating system of anxiety has been replaced by the operating system of trust. You know now that you are supported by the universe, by the gravity, by the air, by the great web of interbeing. You do not have to hold yourself up. You can let go. Allow the body to become heavy. Allow the mind to become wide. You are drifting on the river of impermanence, but you are not afraid of the current because you are the water. This state of deep restorative peace is not a one-time destination. It is a practice. It is a place you can return to night after night. It is a sanctuary that is always open. The doors of this temple are never locked because you hold the key in your own awareness. If this journey has served you, if these ancient maps have helped you find your way out of the forest of noise and into the clearing of rest, then I invite you to make this your ritual. Return to this space. Subscribe to Sleepy Monk. Let us be the companions on your walk. Let us continue to remind you of the diamond when you have forgotten it. Let us continue to tune the string when it has gone tight. We are here to walk you home again and again. For now, there is nothing left to learn. There is nothing left to fix. The lesson is over. The work is done. The heavy coat is gone. You are light. You are safe. You are held. Drift now. Drift into the silence that is your birthright. The night is a friend. The dark is a blanket. The silence is a song. You are home. Chapter 26. The fourth watch of the night. We have dropped the boulder. We have blown out the candle. We have entered the silence. Now we must stabilize this silence. We must turn the fleeting experience of peace into a permanent landscape of the mind. In the ancient Buddhist texts, there is a quality of mind that is considered the crown jewel of all spiritual practice. It is the final fruit of the path. It is called upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is often misunderstood as indifference. We think of a monk sitting in a cave, uncaring about the world. But true upekkha is not cold withdrawal. It is a warm, unshakable balance. It is the capacity to stand in the middle of a fire and not be burned. It is the capacity to be surrounded by noise and remain the silence. To understand this, imagine a great mountain. Let us call it Mount Meru, the mythical peak at the center of the universe. This mountain rises from the earth, solid, massive, and ancient. Its roots go down into the magma of the planet. Its peak pierces the stratosphere. The mountain exists in a world of weather. In the spring, gentle rains fall on its slopes. Wildflowers bloom in riots of color. The mountain does not get excited. It does not cling to the flowers and say, "Stay forever." It simply allows the blooming to happen. In the summer, the sun beats down. The rocks crack with heat. Drought dries up the streams. The mountain does not panic. It does not scream for water. It simply stands, witnessing the heat. In the autumn, the winds howl. Trees are stripped of their leaves. Violent storms batter the cliffs. The mountain does not cower. It does not fight the wind. It allows the storm to rage against its surface, knowing that the stone is stronger than the air. In the winter, ice covers everything. The world goes silent and white. The mountain does not shiver. It does not yearn for the spring. It rests in the cold, vast, and immovable. The mountain experiences everything: pleasure, pain, beauty, violence, heat, and cold. But it is never disturbed by any of it. Its nature is stability. It is the ground that holds the weather, but it is not the weather. This is the instruction for the fourth watch of the night. You are the mountain. Your thoughts, your physical sensations, and the sounds in the room are the weather. Perhaps right now there is a storm of thought in your mind. A memory of an awkward conversation is blowing like a gale force wind. The untrained mind tries to stop the wind. It yells at the weather. But the equanimous mind simply stands. It says, "Ah, a storm is passing on the southern face of the mountain." It feels the wind, but it identifies with the granite. Perhaps there is a pain in your back or an itch on your leg. That is the summer heat or the winter frost. The untrained mind writhes and struggles. The equanimous mind says, "Sensation is arising. It is just energy. It does not move the foundation." Equanimity is the radical permission for everything to be exactly as it is. It is the end of the war with reality. When you stop fighting the weather, you save an immense amount of energy. That energy, which was previously used for resistance, is now available for healing. There is a story of a king who asked his advisors for a ring that would make him happy when he was sad, and sad when he was happy. They gave him a simple gold band with an inscription, "This too shall pass." This is the mantra of the mountain. The storm passes, the flowers pass, the drought passes, the snow passes. Only the mountain remains. Tonight you can visualize your spine as the central axis of this mountain. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. That is your granite foundation. You are heavy, you are ancient, you are vast. If a worry comes, let it blow past. Do not grab it, do not push it. You are too heavy to be moved by a thought. If a sound comes from the street, let it echo off your cliffs and fade away. You are the stillness that absorbs the sound. This practice of upekkha creates a profound feeling of safety. You realize that you do not need the world to be quiet for you to be peaceful. You carry the peace inside your own stability. You are not a leaf blowing in the wind. You are the earth that holds the tree. Rest in this heaviness. Feel the dignity of the mountain. You have seen 1,000 storms before, and you will see 1,000 more. None of them have ever scratched the surface of your true nature. You are safe in your own solidity. The weather is changing, but you are here. You are here. You are here. Chapter 27. The Space Between Thoughts. We are the mountain, stable and strong. Now, from this high vantage point, we look closely at the nature of the weather, the stream of thinking itself. We often feel that our minds are a solid wall of noise, a continuous, unbroken stream of chatter. We feel trapped in a monologue that never breathes. But the wisdom traditions teach us to look closer. They teach us to look for the gap. Music is not made of notes. If you played every note on a piano simultaneously and continuously, it would not be music, it would be a headache. Music is created by the silence between the notes. It is the pause that gives the sound its shape. It is the rhythm of sound and silence, presence and absence. The beauty of a symphony lives in the empty spaces as much as in the crescendos. Your mind is the same. You believe your thoughts are continuous, like a river, but they are actually like a string of pearls. There is a thought, and then a tiny gap, and then another thought. Thought, I need to sleep. Gap. Thought, is the door locked? Gap. Thought, my leg itches. Gap. Usually, we are so mesmerized by the pearls, the shiny, loud thoughts, that we do not see the string, the silence. We jump from one thought to the next, like a monkey swinging through trees, never touching the ground. We bridge the gaps with our own anxiety, creating the illusion of continuity. But the secret to deep rest is to find the string, to find the gap. In the Japanese tradition, this is called ma. It is the negative space, the space in a room that makes the room useful, the space on a page that makes the words readable. Without the white space, the text would be a black block of ink. Without the silence, the mind would be a solid block of noise. Tonight, we practice the art of falling into the gap. Lie quietly and watch your mind like a cat watching a mouse hole. Wait for the next thought to appear. Watch it arise. I am listening to this voice. Watch it stay for a moment. And then, watch it dissolve. What happens immediately after that thought dissolves and before the next one arises? There is a moment, perhaps only a microsecond, of pure silence. It is a flash of empty sky. It is a moment where you exist, but you are not thinking. You are just aware. That gap is the entry point to the infinite. That tiny slice of silence is the diamond we spoke of earlier. It is the luminous mind peeking through the clouds. Your practice tonight is not to stop the thoughts. You cannot force the mouse to stay in the hole. Your practice is to be interested in the space between the mice. When a thought ends, don't rush to the next one. Linger in the fading echo. Extend the gap. Gently push the silence open a little wider, like parting a curtain. I am breathing in. Silence. I am breathing out. In that silence, there is no history. There is no depression. There is no anxiety. Those things only exist in the thoughts. In the gap, you are free. You are timeless. Imagine you are reading a book. Usually, you focus on the black ink, the story, the drama. Tonight, focus on the white paper. The white paper holds the story, but it is not the story. It is the background. It is always clean, always bright, always there. Your awareness is the white paper. The thoughts are just ink. The more you focus on the paper, the less gripping the story becomes. You realize that the drama of your life is just a thin layer of print on a vast, deep field of peace. As you fall asleep, try to catch the moment when the mind slips from thinking into dreaming. That transition is a massive expansion of the gap. It is the moment the ink runs out and you float into the white space entirely. Do not be afraid of the silence. It is not empty space. It is fertile ground. It is the womb of rest. Sink into the pauses. Rest in the intervals. The notes of your day are finished. The song is over. Now there is only the beautiful resonant silence of the concert hall after the orchestra has left the stage. Chapter 28. The Dissolution of Time. As we float in the gaps between thoughts, we begin to dismantle one of the greatest sources of human suffering, time. Or, more accurately, the psychological construct of time. There are two kinds of time. There is clock time, which is the mechanical ticking of the machine on your nightstand. It measures the rotation of the Earth. It is useful for catching trains and scheduling meetings. Then there is psychological time. This is the mental burden of the past and the future. This is the source of the boulder. When you lie in bed awake, you are rarely suffering from the present moment. If you scan your body right now, in this exact split second, is there a problem? You are warm, you are safe, you are lying down. There is no tiger, there is no starvation. The present moment is usually benign. The suffering comes because you leave the present moment. You travel in a time machine. You travel to the past. I shouldn't have said that. I wasted the day. I drank too much coffee. This is the guilt machine. It drags corpses from the graveyard of yesterday and tries to reanimate them in your bed. Or you travel to the future. If I don't sleep, I will be a wreck. How will I handle the meeting? What if this becomes chronic? This is the fear machine. It creates ghost stories about events that have not happened and may never happen. The Buddha taught that living in the past or future is like trying to eat a dream meal. You can chew all you want, but you will never be nourished. You can worry all night, but you will never solve a future problem because the future does not exist here. The only thing that exists is the now, the eternal now. Imagine a river. You are standing on the bank. You look upstream, that is the past. You look downstream, that is the future. But the water is always just here. You cannot touch the water upstream, and you cannot touch the water downstream. You can only touch the water that is flowing over your feet right now. To dissolve time is to step out of the mental time machine. It is to realize that 3 a.m. is just a number. It has no power over you. The anxiety about how long I have been awake is a story about the past. The anxiety about how tired I will be is a story about the future. Cut the timeline, take a pair of golden scissors, and snip the thread of the past behind you. Snip the thread of the future in front of you. What is left? Just this breath, just this sensation of the blanket, just this beat of the heart. When you live in the vertical dimension of the now rather than the horizontal dimension of time, the pressure evaporates. You cannot be late in the now. You cannot be behind in the now. You cannot fail in the now. You are simply being. The ancient masters called this the great stopping. You stop running toward the next moment. You stop fleeing from the last moment. You sink into this moment. It is deep. It is bottomless. When you stop counting the hours stop counting you. You become free of the tyranny of the clock. The night is not a race to the finish line of morning. The night is a sanctuary of the present. Let the ticking clock measure the rotation of the planet. Let it do its job. You have a different job. Your job is to float in the timeless ocean of the present. There is no tomorrow. There is no yesterday. There is only the rise and fall of the chest. There is only the safe, dark, warm cocoon of the now. Stay here. It is the only place where rest can find you. Chapter 29. The Ocean of Awareness. We have stabilized the mountain. We have found the space between the thoughts. We have dissolved the tyranny of time. Now we prepare for the deepest descent. We prepare to leave the surface of the mind entirely and sink into the primordial depths of consciousness. We move from the individual wave back into the totality of the ocean. Imagine you are a single droplet of water. For your whole life, you have lived on the surface, tossed about by the winds of circumstance, scorched by the sun of desire, frozen by the cold of fear. You have fought to maintain your shape as a droplet. You have built walls of surface tension to keep yourself separate from the other droplets. You have believed that if you lose your shape, you lose your life. This is the ego. This is the I that strives and struggles. But now gravity, the gentle, irresistible gravity of sleep, is calling you home. It is pulling you downward, not into death, but into union. Visualize the ocean. The surface is where the activity is. The waves crash. The foam bubbles. The ships sail. This is your waking mind. It is busy. It is noisy. It is chaotic. Most people spend their entire lives trapped on this surface, fighting the waves, trying to smooth the water with their hands. But just 10 feet below the surface, the noise begins to fade. The light changes from harsh white to a cool, soothing turquoise. The chaotic motion of the waves transforms into a gentle, rhythmic swaying. This is the dreaming mind. It is softer, more fluid, less rigid. We are going deeper. Descend now. Sink past the turquoise layers. Sink into the deep indigo. Here, 50 feet down, the storm on the surface is not even a memory. The wind cannot reach this deep. The sun cannot burn this deep. The silence here is thick and heavy. It presses against you like a weighted blanket, holding you, comforting you. This is the state of deep rest. Sink deeper. You are now entering the midnight zone. The water is ink black, but it is not scary. It is the velvet darkness of the womb. It is the darkness of pure potential. Here the temperature is constant. The stillness is absolute. In this depth, you can no longer distinguish yourself as a separate droplet. The walls of yourself have dissolved. You are no longer John or Mary. You are no longer a banker or a teacher. You are no longer anxious or successful. Those were just labels floating on the surface debris. Here, in the deep, you are just water. You are the same substance as the whole ocean. You are vast. You are powerful. You are ancient. Feel the relief of this dissolution. You do not have to hold your shape anymore. You do not have to maintain the boundaries of your personality. You can unclench the fist of your identity. You can melt. This is the state that the yogis call sushupti, deep, dreamless sleep. It is the closest we come to the divine in our daily lives. It is a return to the source. It is a nightly baptism where we wash off the costume of the ego and remember our true nature. Imagine your physical body lying in the bed is becoming liquid. The hard bones are softening into coral. The blood is becoming the tide. The breath is becoming the current. You are expanding. You are no longer confined to the rectangle of the mattress. You are flowing out into the room, out into the night, mixing with the atmosphere, mixing with the stars. There is no here and there. There is only everywhere. Float in this vastness. There is nothing to do. The ocean does not try to be the ocean. It just is. It holds the whales and the microscopic plankton with equal ease. It holds the mountains of the deep and the trenches of the dark with equal embrace. Your consciousness is this ocean. It is capable of holding everything. The worries of tomorrow, they are just tiny pebbles dropping into the Mariana Trench. They sink. They vanish in the dark. They settle on the bottom miles beneath you, turning into sand. They cannot disturb you. You are too big. You are too deep. Feel the slow, massive rhythm of the deep tides. Inhale, the ocean swells. Exhale, the ocean subsides. It is a rhythm that has been beating for billions of years. It is older than your heartbeat. It is the heartbeat of the planet. Align your breath with this ancient rhythm. You are not breathing. You are being breathed by the sea. Surrender to the depth. Let the gravity take you. Down, down, down. Into the cool, dark, healing silence. You are safe here. You are hidden here. The surface world cannot find you. The demands of the day cannot reach you. You are protected by miles of heavy, silent water. Rest here. Dissolve here. Be the water. Be the dark. Be the peace that passes all understanding. Chapter 30. The Return to the Marketplace. We have reached the end of the journey, but also the beginning. We have traveled from the starving prince under the tree to the weaver at her loom. We have sat with the potter and his gold, walked with the traveler and his diamond, stood with the archer, bowed with the monk in the cave, and dissolved into the ocean. You might wonder, what is the point of all this wisdom if I must wake up tomorrow and return to the noise? The final and most profound teaching of the Zen tradition is represented by the ox-herding pictures. The final picture is not of a monk vanishing into a cloud of bliss. It is a picture of a simple person walking back into the marketplace, smiling with empty hands. The ultimate goal of our sleep tonight is not to escape the world forever. It is to rest so deeply, to heal so completely, that we can return to the world tomorrow as a new being. When you wake up tomorrow, you will not be the same person who lay down tonight. The person who lay down was carrying a boulder. The person who wakes up will be standing straight. The person who lay down was clutching a raft. The person who wakes up will be walking free. You will return to the marketplace, to your job, your family, your life, but you will walk through it differently. You will carry the secret of the weaver. You will know that you are the loom, not the thread, and you will weave the dark and light threads with equal grace. You will carry the secret of the potter. You will see your own cracks and the cracks in others not as failures, but as lines of gold, places where the light enters. You will carry the secret of the traveler. You will walk through your day knowing there is a diamond in your coat. You will not beg for approval. You will not beg for worth. You will operate from a place of abundance. You will carry the secret of the archer. You will aim for your goals, but you will stay in the present moment, releasing the arrow without anxiety about the target. You will carry the secret of the ocean. When the storms of the office or the home swirl around you, you will remember the deep indigo silence that lives just beneath your ribs. You will dip into that silence, drink from it, and remain calm. This is the promise of the path. Sleep is not just a biological pause, it is a spiritual reset. It is the nightly death of the ego and the morning resurrection of the spirit. Tonight you have done the work. You have listened. You have understood. You have let go. The seeds have been planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious. While you sleep, these seeds will germinate. The wisdom will take root in your nervous system. You do not need to remember any of this with your thinking mind. Your heart remembers. Your bones remember. So now we initiate the final protocol, the protocol of total surrender. Imagine all the characters we have met tonight are gathering around your bed. The prince, the weaver, the potter, the monk, the archer. They are standing in a circle of protection. They are nodding to you. They are saying, "The work is finished. Good night."